Have you ever met someone and you were just immediately drawn to them? You knew that they were going to play a significant role in your life. Well, that is how I feel about today's guest, Wendy Lee. Wendy Lee rocked it out in her 30-year career in the corporate world. Her success as Senior Vice President in Human Resources is attributed to her compassionate, mindful leadership style. In 2018, she founded LeadHERship Revolution to support women on their quest to lead potent and powerful lives, create a life that they love, and impact the world in revolutionary ways. Wendy is living her best life yet as a certified life coach, transformational retreat leader, international motivation speaker, best-selling author, lifelong yogi, human and animal advocate, and real rock star as a lead singer of a 12-piece variety band, which I've seen in person, and they are amazing. She is the perfect person to speak on today's topic, hustle healthy. So keep on listening. Hey, you. Your next level of expansion is here. And you're not going to accomplish it through hustle and grind. Oh no, not you. You allow ease and flow to come through you so that you can manifest the business of your dreams. Welcome to the Aligned Businesswoman podcast, where you get to be in flow and allow your strategic CEO to meet your inner goddess. This is the podcast for female entrepreneurs who want to strengthen their intuition muscle while applying simple and practical business growth strategies to accelerate. We'll combine energetics and strategy along with human design and your gene keys to optimize your business performance and results. Welcome to another episode of the Aligned Businesswoman podcast. Vanessa here. I have a very special guest, Wendy Lee, and we're going to be talking about hustle healthy. Wendy, thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored to be able to speak with you because every time I have a conversation with you, it is just magical. Welcome.
That's a for real. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation because when we have conversations, they just like go on and we get into deep levels or different levels. And I always enjoy talking with you, my dear.
Same. I want you to share, if we could just start off with you sharing your story, because when I first met you at Katrina's retreat in, is it Santa Fe here in the Texas area? You had a really beautiful story of it. It's like you went through your own transformation to get to where you are now. So can you kind of like brief us of your experience and what led you here and why you are a life and business coach and really a transformational coach?
Yeah. I appreciate that because we all have a story, right? Sometimes when I talk to people, especially entrepreneurs that are doing their own business or even women in the corporate world, I always ask them like, tell me why you do what you do. A lot of times they'll say things like, "Oh, I want to help people or I want to do this thing." And then I'll ask, "And why do you do that?" Because that second layer is where the story is.
Mm-hmm.
So I was definitely a corporate queen. I was in the corporate world for many decades, um, and actually been working since I was 13 years old. So I've had every job you can think of under the sun. And I was a go-getter. We used to call it a high work ethic. I'm going to tell you what I call it now, but a high work ethic. So that meant that I always wanted to do my extreme, very best, even if it was the expense of my time or who I was. Put me in the environment, I turn into a chameleon. I'll get done what you need me to. And it worked. That kind of mentality allowed me to eventually work all the way up to a senior vice president of human resources, right? No small feat. Now, I took every step of the rung to get there. And I really enjoyed it. I did enjoy helping people. I like solving problems. And I was doing a lot of things like employee relations, training and development, mentoring, things that really allowed me to connect with people. But simultaneously, my so-called personal life always seemed to struggle, like big time. right? Like if you were to look at the two side to side, it was like, what is going on here? You know that thing. One of these things belong together. However that story goes from our childhood. It was like it didn't fit, and I happened to be going through a divorce at the time, and honestly, that was not the worst uh, personal experience I'd ever been through. There was other things, but it just was not a match, and I decided that I wanted to ask for a divorce. And in that moment, it was like I literally said, "Why is it that I can be so successful in my career and not successful in my professional intimate or my personal intimate relationships?" And I literally put my hands up in the air like this, like I want to do some I want it to be different. And there was something that turned on in me. I had always been a very conscious, kind of open person, but something flipped in me. And I became a voracious consumer of self development. Like I could not get enough. Raise your hand if you've got that part in your bookshelf or your entire bookshelf that's full of self development books.
Yeah, yeah.
And how many have we really read all the way, or we maybe got it intended to? Mm-mm. I started at the top left and I read every single book until I read my whole library of self development. I got up every morning and I was meditating. I would watch Super Soul Sunday with Oprah Winfrey on Sundays. Like I was just filling myself up because I felt like there was a void. And it was on one of these Sundays that I was watching Super Soul Sunday, and this guest came on, and they were talking about um, a blog that they did around your heart, around love. And I was like, I think I can use some of that. I signed up for their blog. Eventually, I went to one of their events, and then eventually, I went to their retreat. Mind you, I'd never been on a retreat before. I didn't know what a retreat was. And I almost missed it. It came in my email box and I missed it. And I signed up like at the last minute. And you had to go through a whole application process. Mind you, I'm the senior VP of HR. Obviously, I've got some smarts, but I'm like, am I good enough? Are they going to accept me into the program? Right? And I went, and here's what I discovered a lot of things, but the thing that really shifted for me is that he was discussing masculine and feminine energy. And what I realized is that pretty close, 99.9% of my life, I was in uber masculine, meaning being the one that needed to be in control, taking care of everything, being the problem solver, always on. And it worked to some extreme. And what I didn't see is that I thought these two entities of myself were so separated from me not being able to figure out how I could be safe and love and lovable in a romantic partnership, and how I was so successful in the corporate world. And what I realized is it came from the same feeling of not enough.
Mhm.
The not enough in my personal life just made me overdo or take over or turn into a doodle bug, either or. And in the corporate, even though I was taking the lead and being a leader, I wasn't always listening to my intuition
Yeah.
or collaborating. And I kind of had this energy like this, and I didn't realize I did. And I came back from that retreat and I was different. And people were like, something's different. What happened? It just was this acceptance and compassion for myself because I had been hustling for my self-worth my entire life. We all have our story of origin, and there's a mental health wellness chart called the ACEs. I had every single one on there. So sexual abuse, parents that were drug addicted, alcohol addicted, moving all the time, divorce, death of a parent, just a lot of uncertainty and no safety. So, hello, no wonder I
Mhm.
turned on my survival mode, and that's what happened.
Mhm.
And it was like the right timing. And there was a few other things that happened. It wasn't a one and done. I did go through my divorce. I ended up getting into a couple of other situations that were not healthy. But each time it brought to attention more and more about, oh, this is all attached. And it was when I went and really did the work on my past that things started changing because I started changing. No longer was I like susceptible to everything that was happening from the outside to me. I was now changed. So that stuff almost didn't even matter. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had choices. And that's the power of transformation. Switching the way you view the world and then how you react to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
eventually I left the corporate world because my experience with that life coach was so impactful. And people were like, are you crazy? You're at the height of your career. I could have stayed, and I was already in my 50s. I mean, talk about leaving security. But I knew in my heart I wanted to be able to do this on a different level, say what I wanted, how I wanted to say it, deliver it in a way that I wanted to. And I didn't want to be confined. So that's how I got to be here with you today.
I love that. And when you share that story, there's a couple things that come to mind. It is as if every person that gets into this space of personal development, and it's not just the surface level of affirmations and thinking positive, but it's really going deep to the subconscious and questioning some of those beliefs. I think of the Matrix as if we are
Mhm.
awakened and we're like, oh my gosh, we've been asleep this entire time. And we can add programming or we can delete programming and we can experience life however we choose to experience. However, we have to know that it's within our power to choose. And another thing that comes to mind is that a couple of years ago, I learned about, like you, feminine and masculine energy. And for so long, I saw what I thought was feminine energy, which was really distorted feminine energy
Mhm.
of being the overly, like the over mothering things, right? Doing all that. And that is being wanting to control. And when we think about the woman and the man, the woman is the receiving and the man is the giving. I think about, when did this come about? When did we get into a state where we have to balance the masculine and the feminine in such a different dynamic than we
Mhm.
used to? And I think about the movie. I do everything in movies, I swear. I was always a movie, like I just love movies. I used to watch a lot more movies than I do now, but I think about the League of Our Own,
Mhm.
or the League of Their Own. I think it was the League of Their Own, League of whatever, League of Our Own. The baseball movie, right? When the men went off to war, and the women were taking these roles on. And I think that when we get into the space of we have to do it all because we've done it once, that it really messes with us when we need to kind of restore that balance within us.
Yeah.
But we had to realize that something's off balance. And so when you coach people and you take them through, you share your story and you can identify, because you once were there, what is something that you like to do right away to make sure
Mhm.
that they're feeling like, wait a minute, it's like you are Morpheus and they're Neo. Like, what is the pill that you offer them so that they
Yeah.
can come forth with you?
So I wanted to, before I answer, and that's a wonderful question, I wanted to provide a perspective about the feminine energy and the masculine energy. It really is that both men and women have feminine and masculine energy. And the way I look at it, because I've changed my school of thought about balance as kind of being this kind of equilibrium. What I see with the masculine and feminine energy is that that energy is available to us either or at any time. So sometimes I need to summon in more of my masculine energy when I've got a deadline or I've got something to do, or it's the structure, right? So having things organized and structured so that I can feel safe in the more receiving energy of the feminine, where I receive downloads and I get ideas and I do collaborations and I listen to my intuition. It's like they work hand in hand.
Yes.
So I love having now knowing, oh, I could tap into this or tap into that. And a big part of that is exactly how then I work with clients. The first aspect that I work with is from a principle of we are not broken and we do not need to be fixed. Because so many people that I talk to, they come to these conclusions in their life, and it's really rooted in a lot of shame and a lot of what ifs and a lot of not enough. So I like to first clear out and just hold space so that people can be validated right where they are and know where you are right now is you've done the absolute best with the information that you've had up to this point. So let's invite in compassion. Let's invite in awareness. Let's invite in understanding. And you're halfway there when you do that. From that point, it's all about, do you want to take, I call it own hership, because my company's name is LeadHERship Revolution. Are you ready to really take ownership of your life? That means you have to take ownership of it all, right? How are you showing up? How are you responding? Because I know it feels this way, and especially when we're in the survival pattern mode and we haven't gotten into the thriving mode, it feels like everything's coming at us. That's just a reflection of what still needs to be resolved from our past. So it's really like taking a look at, and I kind of call it like putting this hug around ourselves. Because once you start taking ownership, because here's the thing, we're the common denominator of our entire life,
Yeah.
our work, our business, our relationships. That's the good news. You start filling this up and loving on this, everything will switch differently because then you're going to have more choices.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I love to start with any kind of client, because I'm not here to fix anybody and I'm not here to solve your problem. I'm here just to hold space and maybe reflect back things that you cannot see within where you are now, but you have all the power within you to then make those decisions.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah. Well, I feel like when I got into into more deep of the like personal development, the coaching and stuff, the transformational part of it, there was a lot of, let me fix you type of thing. And I'm like, I didn't resonate with that. It's like, and I don't want to ever tell anyone that, because you're right. Like you're doing the best that you can with the resources you have. This morning when I was talking to my biz bestie, we're talking about a program that we're coming out together. And when I think about the way our own beliefs are, our own programming, we cannot beat ourselves up for not having. So if we're a computer, we cannot beat ourselves up for not being able to write documents in Word if we didn't install that programming, right? We get to choose what we're putting
Impossible.
in there, right? Yeah. So I love that. Like you're like, okay, wait a minute. We don't have that programming, but that's okay. We can easily install it. We can make room. We can, clear out things that we don't want. So now you have more memory in there, right? We have more storage in there, right? What are some of the tools that you like to use when you're doing coaching?
Yeah, it's so interesting because you said that perfectly, because the way we feel how the world is treating us is the way we feel about ourselves, except for the way we feel about ourselves is somebody else's story.
Oh yeah.
It's either parenting or school or environment or society, and then it's the story we told ourselves as our 7-year-old selves of what that all means. We don't have that capacity at 7 years old. And what that all means is it's my fault and I'm doing something wrong. So I need to pivot in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So give yourself a freaking break, right? And some of the tools that I like to use is, so it depends on where we are in the cycle. If people come into like my 6-month program, they get a VIP day with me, and they get to choose, where is your favorite place you like to go? So for instance, I had a VIP day with somebody, and they wanted to be in the woods. And it was like, okay, they were asking all these questions. What are we going to do? And what do I need to bring? And I said, you know what? We're going to go take a walk in the woods. I said, bring your journal and, bring some snacks or whatever. I want you to be in your environment. And we walked around and we had conversations and we talked, and then we would get some feelings, some vibes. And by the time we got done with our 3 hours being in the woods, all of our questions were answered.
Hmm.
We didn't have to have this. All I had to do was lean in and first trust my intuition, make sure that there was some consensus there. Like, what is it that's calling you, so that we're co creating? So I absolutely love to bring in nature in one way or another, especially Mother Nature. It's so mothering. Um, and I also like to help people to understand themselves and how they naturally operate. So that might mean that I use human design. Um, Sometimes I use Strengths Finder. Sometimes I use Enneagram. Right now, I am doing human design. And I know enough of human design to understand me and to be dangerous. So I actually have a certified HD person that I use that does one-on-one with them while they're going through the program. Um, and the other thing that I really like to do is a combination of mindset, heart set, and spirit. So the mindset is we'll do teaching pieces, right? I teach on ownership, having badass boundaries, feminine and masculine energy, um, the heart of decision making. Like, your life is an accumulation of all the decisions you've ever made. So there's some sort of workshop. And then what are you doing somatically? So for people that maybe don't understand that term, somatic is just how your vibration is in your body. And so I love to bring in things that are either visual, sensory, vibration, sound, because I feel like it's a group effort for us to. Um, it's weird. I've been playing around with the term healing. I do feel like there is some healing, but it's just part of being the human experience. And part of the human experience is we're experiencing things, and we're meant to let go, the law of sacrifice, in order to bring in the next level of energy. And that's how the cycle goes. We contract and we expand, we contract and we expand.
Mhm.
So, and I especially really love to host that in group settings so that people can see you're not alone, and you get so much more interaction when there's other people. So, either in group programs or retreats that I host. So, those are part of the things that I like to do.
Sounds beautiful. I like that, walking in the forest. Like, to me, my day would be on the beach. I just love the beach. There's a specific spot that I go to whenever I need to, like, just get into my body. And that's right next to Murdoch's in Galveston. There's like a little place right in front of Hotel Galvez. There's like a little place right there. I just like to sit, and that's my spot. So, um,
So, I have to share this with you. So, I moved to Galveston when I was 12 years old. We lived there for a couple of years, moved away, and then I moved back the day after I graduated. But we lived very, very close to that spot
uh-huh,
down the street. And I also used to work right there before the hurricane. There used
yeah.
to be a restaurant there, so I know exactly what spot you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I love that spot. It's just a spot, and I love Hotel Galvez. That's like my favorite place to go. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the wordings or the phrase hustle healthy.
Mm.
What would be the physical manifestation? So we kind of want to bring it into like concrete examples for people. What would be a physical manifestation hinting to you that you're hustling way too much?
Yeah. It's easy. It's easy, but we don't recognize it, right? It's the
Mhm.
old thing about, putting a frog in the water and they don't realize the water's boiling because you're already in there.
Yeah.
Um, and I think generally speaking, and this is a very generalized statement, but women by nature are caretakers, right? It's easy for us to care and give care to other people. And sometimes we do it at the detriment or the depletion of our own energy. Um, so when you're feeling tired all the time, that's a good sign.
Mhm.
And sometimes we get so used to being tired that it's just like, oh, I just thought that's how I'm supposed to be. No, you're not supposed to be tired all the time. Now, listen, we got a lot on our plates. We've got our careers, we've got our family, we've got kids, we've got dogs, we've got dry cleaning, we've got grocery shopping. We have a lot of stuff on our plates. But if you are overly exhausted, you really need to pay attention to that. The other thing is that if you find that you're getting a little short or frustrated easily, more than likely it's because you're not advocating for you having your time. When we just give, 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 that's not our natural state, right? Even animals in the wild, they have spurts of things and then they relax, right?
Mhm.
It's not a constant thing. So understanding some of those things, and then if you're just always feeling rushed and hurried, find out how many times in the day you say, "Oh, I'm so busy."
Mhm.
I'm going to say some truth here. Busy is an addiction.
Mhm.
It is what our nervous system gets used to. And busy feels the same as, I'll use myself as an example, as a kid when there was chaos. It felt unsafe, uncertain. Everything was changing minute to minute. So, guess what I mimicked as I went into my adult life? The same thing. I was in situations that were not safe, or I was in busy, or I was always doing, because that's what my nervous system was used to. But it caused a lot of problems. You know, I've had health issues because of it. I've had issues with depression, anxiety. I mean, we've all had something because of that. It's when we're not being the boss, I call it the CEO. Are you the chief energy officer of your life, of your time and your energy?
Mhm.
I don't know how much time you think we have, but it's going to go by like that.
Oh yeah.
And especially for women, we need to nurture those parts of us. But if we were the caregiver or the I got it kind of person, or had to step up, or we try to prove ourselves in what we do, so we get the people pleaser or perfectionist, we really need to look at where is that rooted. Because until you get to those roots, you're going to be doing that same pattern over and over. So just observe yourself and your behavior. And why and when are you calling in things when your schedule is already packed full? What's that all about?
Mhm.
And what if you could get out of the mindset that it's not what you do, but who you are? You are already fabulous, right? And how would you schedule your time if you really took control over that?
Mhm.
How would you bring in your energy? Who would you say yes to? Who would you say no to?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an epidemic. And we also glamorize it,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes.
If
So
I
this
tell
hap-
you, yeah, if I tell you, girl, what you been up to? Oh my God, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. And you're like, man, I'm exhausted and whatever, but it's all good. And what do? Oh my God, you're so wonderful. We
yeah,
encourage it. It's not sexy and it's not sustainable. And there is other options.
for sure. This upcoming week inside my Facebook group, we're talking about toxic productivity and the signs
Oh, yes.
and the impact. And, when we go down to the root cause, you're right. It's about proving our worthiness. And what I found is that we all are trying to prove our worthiness in some way. So as we're trying to prove it to someone else, they're busy in their own little bubble, not even seeing what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, like we don't even realize it when we're in there. But when we have these toxic thoughts of, I got to keep doing it. And then we
Yeah.
are hard on ourselves for not doing that. And what I've noticed is that, okay, so about 70% of the population is either a manifesting generator or a generator. So it's about 30-ish, when you combine them. And so as generators, we have the ability to go, 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 right? But we get it a little bit confused that yes, we need to deplete our energy in a great way so that we get some rest. But when we get into overdrive, it's kind of like kids getting overtired. Then we can't sleep and we're frustrated and we're not satisfied. So it's being mindful of, is this really, am I listening to my sacral? Am I listening to my authority?
Mhm.
So I can direct my energy. And I love that you're saying those things, because sometimes we got to see what it looks like tangibly and practically before we realize we got to back it up and be like, oh, wait a minute. This is what it really is.
That's the statement right there. It's like, can you be honest enough with yourself to take a step back and look what it is, and then look at the why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you really doing that? Right? Why are you really saying yes when you know darn well you ain't got time to put that thing on your calendar or do whatever it is? I call it clean energy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you burning clean energy? Are you burning energy that, because have you ever been on the other end when somebody's so busy?
Yes.
That energy just it feels like, right? Or the energy when you do things when you don't, then you're resentful.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's about making choices, but you gotta love on this thing first enough to know your time is so valuable. Your energy is so valuable. Like if you only had this much, what are you going to use it on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that you're doing that inside your group. Perfect.
Yes. So one of the things that I learned about myself was, so there's a difference between gene keys and the human design, right?
Yeah.
And so my vocation sphere in the gene keys is that when I'm in my shadow, I'm exhausted.
Right.
But when I can get into my gift, there's just something that opens up for me. And I started to look at the physical manifestations of me being in my shadow. And it was that I would not deplete my energy in a clean way where
Mm-hmm.
I would actually sleep good. Instead, I was like that baby that was overtired and my thoughts were going, 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 going. I have a defined head and a defined ajna. So there's a lot of energy right
You
there.
got a lot.
I have 4 gate 11s. So that's the gates of ideas. So there's a shit ton of things going on there too. And I notice, like, when I am living in alignment, no matter how high performing I'm doing, if I'm performing in a way where it is out of integrity and I'm not congruent, then I don't rest. But when I'm performing just right, it was like, ooh, I'm just saying I'm getting excited about this. I sleep really damn good, right? But what I
Yes.
was gonna say is that my vocation sphere, when I would get exhausted, I would trigger my vertigo. I would trigger
Mm-hmm.
these things. And so then I'm like, wait a minute. That when I experienced that, I'm like, I check in. I was like, I was probably going way too fast right there. And I decided. And so I allow myself now to respond and just check in and being with that, having that awareness of like, wait a minute, is this really what I want to do? But I think that sometimes we're not aware of those things, right? We don't realize that. And I love that you're helping women to slow down and think about, how am I going to hustle healthy so that I'm able to do what I'm passionate about without
Yes.
killing myself?
That's it. Right? Because listen, The world is calling so much for everybody to step forward, but especially women right now,
Hmm.
but not in the old way, right? We can keep fighting the traditional or we can create a new.
Hmm.
I want to create a new. You want to create a new because we can just keep going down the other path, or we can say, oh, what if we do this? But if we're not in integrity with ourselves, and I love, love, love that your body showed up as um, vertigo. I mean,
Spinning out of
hello.
control. Yeah.
I mean, that is completely about equilibrium, right? I mean, if that wasn't a spot on of,
Yeah.
'cause listen, if you don't understand it for yourself, your body will. Your
Hmm.
body does not lie, and you're gonna have the consequences one way or the other. So it's really about all of that, and I love that you're breaking it down this way. It's all about first, you gotta question your thoughts first of all, because most of them are not true. And I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say it. That people pleaser, all that is manipulation. We're trying to manipulate the situation so that people will like us or that we will belong or we won't let people down. And it's
Mm.
just a learned behavior. Don't beat yourself up about it. We kind of jokingly say, oh, I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, there's something deeper there.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm in recovery of people pleasing. That was my go-to. I was we either fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Fawning is people pleasing, and that's my number one.
Hmm.
So it's like if we can, through ourselves, start changing these things, our vibration changes. When we get in with other people, we affect their vibration. They're like, "What's happening over there? I want to be a part of that." You want to change this collective consciousness? This is how we do it. This is how we do it right here, Vanessa. Just getting on this podcast and talking like this. And that's
Hmm.
why I know you and I met for a reason in the way that we met. Like I can see a bigger picture about it.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that we did meet and that you're doing what you're doing in the world as well.
Yeah, me too. And I love that all the things that you're saying. I want to go back to that before we wrap up, but you know, we don't realize it when we're in it, that when we're people pleasing, when we're spreading our energy so thin and we're hard on ourselves about it, the outside looking in makes the other person not, especially if they don't have the correct, or not, I don't want to say correct, but if their filters are not intact to read these things, they can think that we resent them, we don't
Mm,
love them, and we cause a separation because we're going too fast trying to do all these things that we're not slowing down and tuning into our loved ones and tuning into our own self-love. There's one person I can think of right now, like I absolutely adore her, and she says, I'm a people pleaser. And what I see it is that you're right, it's manipulation because she doesn't want to feel uncomfortable.
that's it. It's always because we don't want to feel the feelings. And we
Hmm.
don't want to feel the feelings that usually don't even exist.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, I'll just give a quick example because I know we're wrapping up. But let's say that you say yes to something and you have no business saying yes. You're already bursting like a tick. You're about to pop any minute, and you add that one thing. And in your mind, you're doing it. Maybe you're doing it because of this. Maybe you're doing it because, well, Sally did that for me last time. I can't not do it for Sally now. She's going to think bad of me. In that moment, literally what you're saying out loud is how you feel about yourself already.
Hmm.
And that's where you need to give yourself some love and some compassion and get a little curious about what's all that about. Because otherwise, you're going to be constantly doing that. And then it turns into either martyring or resentment and that energy. I mean, we don't even have to talk about that energy, but it's like and here's the last thing. And all this going, 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 it's a distraction.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a distraction from us feeling. It is an unhealthy way to soothe temporarily our nervous system instead of just sitting in the feelings and resolving the feelings so that they can pass through.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I do the my whole hustle healthy restorative retreat so that we can just get in a space where for a couple of days we can take out all of the distractions and just be with our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're so afraid of that. But let me tell you, being in this whirlwind is a million times harder than sitting with your feelings. You just think it is because it's like, ooh, how do I get there? What am I going to do? What happens if something comes up? That's why you have people like you and me in the world that can help people move through those things.
Yeah. People don't realize the villains in their life. And I recently did this. I was telling you before, it's like I'm just really fine tuning everything in my business. And so I was doing this brand scripting thing with Donald Miller, and he talks about who is the villain in your ideal client's life. And that is it, distraction. And
Yeah.
we think villains are something tangible, but they're not always. The villains can be within it and the things that we choose to avoid something.
And it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a villain because it takes the energy from you, but it's also a gift because imagine as a kid you had to understand fully and take on all the energy of everything that happened to you.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Not with your little 7-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
So our ego and our brain does us a favor by kind of compartmentalizing it and storing it. And we learn how to process that way. Until then, we have a better understanding, and that all that stuff we have stored, it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm. I want to continue another episode some other time because I want to be able to talk about this. I have a theory, and we're not going to get into this right now because this will take so long. But I want us to talk about some later date
Yes.
about how I feel that the mind, and you probably already know this, the mind is very the masculine, right? And then the body is the feminine. But there is something about Adam and Eve, the spiritual, the way the Bible speaks about men and women. I just feel like there's something there, and I want to dive into that because I want to get my thoughts on paper, but I want to get your perspective on this because I feel like there's more layers that people, maybe someone out there sees this. I don't know, but I think there's a conversation to be had about how sometimes I think that the real leader is our body,
Mhm.
and there was something that was cut out when we decided to do more of a patriarchal like perspective of things. Does that make sense? So I want to
Yeah.
talk about that some other time because I think that would be
I'm
a really great
I'm
conversation.
down. Sign me up because I'm already like, ooh, I want to start talking about it now. But I'm like, nope.
We'll get our thoughts together. All right. So before we wrap up, how can someone connect with you? And then I have a secret question that I always ask my guests. So,
Ooh,
but tell us
secret
how we can
question.
connect with you.
So you can connect with me a couple of ways. Certainly, I'm on all the socials. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel. Um, you can also connect with me via my website. Um, and I'll also drop in if you want to know a little bit more about and be a part of the LeadHERship Revolution community. Um, it's completely free and there's a lot of goodies and you can kind of be in the circle of what's happening and what's going on. And it's a community. So I'll provide all of those links with Vanessa and she can share those.
Okay. And just really quickly for people that may be driving when they're listening to this, are they looking up
Oh,
Wendy Lee or LeadHERship
yeah.
Revolution?
So thank you for that. So on LinkedIn and on Facebook, it's Wendy Lee.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, it's LeadHERship Revolution. And you could put in Wendy Lee, but it'll be Wendy, parentheses, Stormy Lee.
Got it. Okay. Well, cool. And then last question, what are you reading right now or listening to on Audible?
Okay, so it's really interesting because I just circled back on The Four Agreements, which is one of my favorite books. Have you read that one?
Yes. And for my birthday, my best friend gave me that book again. So, or not again, but she gave me that book. So I was like, okay, maybe this is fun. I need to go back and read it. I haven't read it in like 5, 6 years. So, yes.
So it's interesting because one of my clients that's in my group coaching program right now, I gave her my copy to read and she returned it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to start reading this again. And so I started reading it again. And it's like, oh, this is a must have. Like, this is a must have just for life. And
Mhm.
just for people that haven't read it, the principles, there's 4 principles. It's broken down such a simple way, and you're going to read it and be like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. It will improve the way you feel about yourself, about other people, and just the general feeling that you feel about your life in the world. I promise you.
I love that. I'll make sure to link it for anyone that wants to read it. So thank
Yes,
you so much for being here. I appreciate your time and your energy, and I love you so much.
I love you, my dear, too. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll catch you next time on the next episode of The Aligned Businesswoman. Bye bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Aligned Businesswoman podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Ann Miller, and I'm so excited to share some goodies with you. Head over to the show notes so you can grab your free gift and make sure to leave a review and join me inside the Aligned Businesswoman Facebook group. Until next week, bye bye, my love.